So it's challenging because the way I was raised was the parent was always right and the kid was always wrong. And a lot of parents have that mentality still that they know better because they're the adults. But don't shove that down your kid's throat. That's not going to help them develop, grow, learn how to manage life on their own. The other big mistake that parents make is they try to be their kid's friend. Your child doesn't need a friend. They need someone who's going to hold them accountable for their behavior.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Positively Healthy Mom. I'm your host, Laura Ollinger, teen and parent wellbeing coach and founder of Positively Healthy Coaching. And today I'm super excited to introduce you to Dr. Kristen Cook, who is a pediatrician with over 15 years of clinical experience. She's an author, a podcast host, and a mom of two very strong-willed kids. And she helps create more peaceful and effective parenting journeys by encouraging them to parent the children that they have. She assists parents in understanding their unique child or children on a deeper level, creating connection, positive discipline strategies, and more joyful homes. So, Dr. Kristen Cook, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add to that introduction?
You captured it perfectly, but I do want to just mention that my children right now are 13 and 10, so I'm right in the thick of the teenager preteen era, and I can appreciate what parents are going through.
I love that you said that because you have the in-home experience, which is so crucial to understand what it's really like, not just, parenting out of a book or a theory or anything, but it's like that real life application. You cannot replace that. So
not at all.
Amazing. So today I'm really excited to focus on teen relationships, whether that's teen friendships or dating relationships, romantic type relationships. And this is a whole ball of wax. So I can't wait to get started. So what is your kind of like knowledge or philosophy on this topic just as a whole?
It's a topic that's really kind of misunderstood. And teenagers don't have the capability to approach relationships the same way that adults do because their brains aren't fully developed. So a teenager will interpret a relationship with friends or a significant other very differently than their parent will interpret that relationship. So it's so important for parents to try to take the perspective of their teen when it comes to relationships and dating.
Yes. To really kind of use their empathy, those mirror neurons kind of like put themselves in their teenager's body for a minute and just try to imagine like, what does this feel like? And so with what you do as a pediatrician and giving all this amazing parenting knowledge, what are some things that you feel like would be helpful for the moms today to understand, not just, that they need to get inside and understand what their teenagers are feeling, but like, what are the big stressors that teens are dealing with as far as relationships these days?
Yeah. So teens are highly, highly motivated by social cues. And so they're trying to figure out where they fit into the world. And they're really highly motivated by rewards. So if something is rewarding to them, they will want to do it more, which is one of the things that sometimes parents struggle with because, my gosh, this person is treating you so terribly. Why do you still want to be their friend? They're getting some type of reward out of it.
I'm so glad you said that because, yes, it can be so confusing and frustrating. And I've seen moms kind of like pulling their hair out, like, why are you still friends with this girl? Why are you not breaking up with this boy? Like, what is happening? And so can you go like a little bit deeper into that? Like when you say rewards, can you explain that a little more clearly?
Yeah, so let's go through an example. So let's say you've got a teenage daughter and she goes out driving with friends. And one of the friends decided that they wanted to use marijuana. And now they're encouraging your child to use marijuana. Let's say she knows how bad that stuff is. But in the moment, the peer pressure and the approval that she perceives that she will be getting from her peers far outweighs any of the negative aspects of engaging in that behavior and then coming home and having to tell mom and dad about it.
Yeah. So many times parents think, oh, but my child knew better. We've talked about this, like what happened? And they kind of like, whoa. And so kind of really understanding, because I've heard people say, oh, there's no such thing as peer pressure. You decide what you do for yourself. And right, you make your own decisions. And putting yourself in your child's shoes, like understanding the social benefit or the social gain that they'll get from
Yes.
that acceptance, right? And
Mhm.
so that kind of explains that behavior. So,
Right.
can you get into it, that romantic relationship, right? Like,
Oh,
what is
yeah.
happening? Like, you don't even like your boyfriend, or he treats you not very nicely,
Mhm.
or he ignores you, or he's talking to other girls. Like, why
Mhm.
are you still doing this? Like, right? Like, does
Right.
that
Right.
apply with that as
Oh,
well?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And again, the teenager is not viewing the relationship the same way as the parent. The parent can see all the red flags, but maybe the child is dating the most popular kid in school, and that has suddenly given her a bunch of street cred. So trying to understand why our kids are engaging in these relationships is important. And if they're at the age now, you can gently ask them. One of the biggest mistakes that I see parents make when it comes to their teenagers' relationships is they get into the overly critical, they wanna, tell their kids what's right. It's really, really important to take a step back and listen to your teen and what your teen has to say about these relationships.
Yeah, I'm so glad that was kind of my next question is like, now that we have kind of the why, or we can kind of put ourselves in their shoes, kind of understand what are these rewards, even if it's in a negative situation. And so that was the next question is, well, what's next? And instead of criticizing them, it's kind of like that get curious, like finding out like
Right.
what is important to you about this and like how is this making you
Mhm.
feel? And so what are some
Mhm.
other ways to do that? Like whether it's like phrasing of a certain question or what is like the
Yeah.
energy that you bring to this conversation? How do you approach it?
So I love approaching it from the sense of we need to have a family meeting because then that gives teenagers time. You're not blindsiding them, right? Like you don't want to force a conversation if it's not the right time or place, but you're also letting your teen know, "Hey, I'm a little worried and I want to understand where you are coming from. So I think this meeting is really really important."
Okay. Okay. So then what would happen next? They come to the meeting, you
Yeah.
sit down, like what
Yeah.
happens? How does that conversation go?
Yeah. And then maybe just very briefly, "Hey, how did you meet this person?" Let's say it's a dating relationship. "Where'd
Okay.
you meet this person? What do you like about this person? What kind of things do you like to do together?" So, attempt to get to know before the judgments start.
Right.
Because if you approach it from the standpoint of, "This boy is so mean to you, you're always planning the dates, why hasn't he asked you to homecoming yet?" Your kid will shut down. And that's exactly what we don't want when it comes to teen relationships.
Mhm, mhm, exactly. We want the opposite. We
Yes.
would if we wanna steer one way or the other, we want the oversharer of a child, right?
Yes.
We don't want the
Yes.
undershare, we want
Absolutely.
the overshare.
Right.
Great, and so then how, like, then do you kind of influence them, or how do you allow them to see your perspective, or how do you allow them to see your concerns without it becoming this kind of, "Mom, you're controlling me. Mom, you're telling me what to do," or, "Mom, you don't understand." Like, how do you
Mhm.
keep the conversation open so it doesn't shut down?
Yeah, so I think it's about focusing on what is important to your child. Let's say they're in an unhealthy relationship and their significant other is trying to isolate them from family and friends. So bringing up, "Hey, I noticed you haven't been to cheer practice in a while. Can you tell me what's going on with that?
Mhm,
Do you not like cheer anymore? Because if not, that's okay. But I'd like to understand things from your perspective."
mhm,
So coming it from the approach of, I would like to understand rather than I want to tell you what to do.
mhm. Okay, and so say they share, um, "Well, Tommy has been wanting to go to the lake after school, and he likes to fish, and he wants me to go with him, so I'm going fishing after school, I'm not going to cheer." Whatever, like, what happens then? Like, how do you get to that next step?
Yeah. Are you having fun at the lake? Do you enjoy it? Do you miss cheer? And then you just keep the conversation going based on the child's response.
Mhm, mhm. And then I would love to chime in here with my thought on this type of conversation as well, which is a lot of times parents feel like they need the solution to happen immediately. Like, we're
Mm.
having a family meeting, this needs to get resolved, da 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 da. And if it is a matter of danger, safety, by all means, get it resolved then. But sometimes these things need to unfold a little bit longer, right? It's not going to just one little meeting, we're done, right? They might need to experience for themselves that oh, I do miss my cheer friends, or, oh, I'm feeling really isolated, right? Like
Mhm.
allowing them to discover that from themselves. So, what are your thoughts about that?
100%, absolutely. Trying to tell your teenager what to do is gonna backfire. Now, the one exception is, as you mentioned, if it's a dangerous situation. So, if it's an
Mhm,
abusive relationship, it needs to end and it needs to end immediately.
mhm.
But if it's just someone you don't think is a good fit for your kid, trust your child. They'll see the truth about who that person is eventually.
And I think that's such a great learning moment and learning opportunity for both moms and teens because
Mhm.
teens need to learn life on their own terms, right?
Right.
So many moms these days, we tend to be helicopter moms and snowplow moms and making life
Mhm.
real easy. We don't want our
Mhm.
child to feel any pain. We want them to learn from us and not from experience. But in reality, they do need to have their own experience. They
Mhm.
do need to know what it feels like to feel sad or pain or left out or
Mhm.
confused, or
Mhm.
allow them to go through that thought process. Because if we just circumvent that or cut that learning off, they'll never actually learn. And then this might happen
Right.
down the road. So better them
Right.
kind of go through it now in the safety of your own environment where you can be
Mhm.
guiding them. And so, what would you say to moms who are kind of just struggling with that, like struggling with wanting to fix it or struggling with wanting to control it because they just can't help it. Like it's like they just have this impulse to protect their child.
Right. Yeah, and that's first of all, acknowledging that impulse, I think, is very, very important,
Hmm.
but also understanding that if you try to shield your child from the hardships of the world, you're doing them more harm than good, because those hardships aren't going to magically disappear when they're an adult. They're gonna be there, and they need the tools and the skills to learn how to deal with it before they're out on their own.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad that's the perfect way to say it. So, next, kind of shifting over to this other topic, which I am very passionate about neurobiology and kind
Yes.
of developmental psychology, but within the context of the physical brain. Tell us about that. What do you have to share
Yeah.
for the mom so that they can understand, oh, why is my teen acting this way? Or why can't they not do this? Or, kind of explain to us
Yeah.
your view on that.
So, what I always tell the parents in my medical practice is the human brain does not fully develop until a person is in their mid 20s. A teenager can't think like an adult, which is why they don't act like an adult. And we need to understand that their brain is still developing. They don't have the same critical thinking skills that we have.
Hmm.
The teenage brain is very highly influenced by a structure of the brain called the nucleus accumbens, which is in the limbic system. Now, the limbic system is not, it's really mostly in the subconscious. And so, one of the things that we can help our teens do is if they engage in some type of behavior that we as parents are like, what were you thinking? Walk them through it. And it may not change their behavior immediately, but that is building the stage for them to create their own critical thinking skills.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, yes. I love that. I've said before that sometimes, moms, they need to play the role of that prefrontal cortex for their teenagers
Right.
because if they're not being able to make those decisions on their own, then sometimes we do have to step in a little bit more than
Mhm.
maybe we'd want to or that we think is necessary. A lot of times,
Mhm.
especially I see it with big teenage boys, right? They're big, they're in big bodies. They look like men, but they're not. They're it's still a child in a very big body.
Mhm.
Right? And so
Yeah.
having to have parents understand how our role is shifting. Our role is shifting a lot from elementary school, then it shifts to middle
Mhm.
school, shifts to high school. And so
Mhm.
how do you see those roles changing in parents as far as stepping in, stepping back, finding the
Yeah.
right balance?
So it's challenging because the way I was raised was the parent was always right and the kid was always wrong. And a lot of parents have that mentality still that they know better because they're the adults. But don't shove that down your kid's throat. That's not going to help them develop, grow, learn how to manage life on their own. The other big mistake that parents make is they try to be their kid's friend. Your child doesn't need a friend. They need someone who's going to hold them accountable for their behavior.
Yes, yes. As far as just this relationships and kind of having a family meeting, having a conversation, understanding. that how their brain is, not fully developed and they're a child, what else can we do or say or model as far as just like teaching them healthy relationships, healthy friendships, positive
Mhm.
friendships, and but at the same time allowing them to experience it on their own, but we still are after all the parent, right? We still have to help
Mhm.
in some way. So what else are some of those other things that moms can do?
As much as you can, model healthy relationship behavior. Now,
Mhm.
this can be challenging if there's a single mom and they don't get along with their ex,
Mhm.
or, you know, parents that fight all the time. You really have to kind of pay attention to your own behavior and make sure that you are demonstrating the behaviors that you would like your child to demonstrate in the future.
Yes, yes, yes. I always say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Mhm.
And I say that with
Mhm.
love and compassion,
Yep.
because look no further than, in the mirror, then you might find a reason for why something is happening with your child. And so
Right.
that's something that I do talk a lot about too. And especially even when it comes to, because a lot of this like middle school and high school stuff, it's very much related to self-worth and self-talk and
Yes.
how we view ourselves as individuals and how we can project confidence in the world, right? So
Mhm.
classically, I mean, this is my kind of bread and butter is a client who is a teenage girl who's not feeling very confident. They come to me, they ask for help. And along the way, what I discover almost every time is it's usually the mother that is lacking her own self worth and lacking her own self
Yes.
confidence. And so that's kind of like my big public service announcement for today is
Right.
if you're wanting your child to have better relationships, feel better about themselves, do, these healthy things, then it might be time to work on yourself. Like,
Mhm.
get some help, get a coach, get a therapist, get a counselor, get a friend, just somebody to like talk through things with to find
Right.
out like how you can build these so that way you can be the healthiest model for
Mhm.
your child.
Yeah.
Have you seen that a lot in your practice as a
All the
pediatrician?
time. All the
Yeah.
time. Absolutely. And it's kind of a gentle pulling the parent aside and saying, "Look, your kid hears what you say about yourself, and they're gonna start to believe that about themselves.
Hmm.
And I would love to get you resources for you to work on your negative thoughts if that's something you would like to do, but at a minimum, please try not to say that in front of your kids."
Yeah. And how does that usually land with them?
It depends on the parent. I've been doing this long enough where I've established really good relationships with most of my patients and their families, and so a lot of them will take it to heart. Some of them will ask for resources, others just kind of are, more contemplative and kinda take it in.
Mm, yeah, yeah, so important. Well, I mean, that is
Yeah.
why we're here today, right? To kind of like,
Right,
and again, I say it with gentle lovingness, but for
right.
kind of the care of yourself and your child. That if you're wanting things to change, that you might need to kind of do some investigative thinking about
Mhm.
yourself, or kind of some inner work, things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
What other, all along this line of friendships and dating and kind of keeping in mind
Mhm.
that kind of relationship and connection with your teenager, what else can you share with us or things that you've seen in your own practice that
Yeah.
might have been a trouble that you've been able to help resolve?
It's really important for parents to be aware of the signs of domestic abuse, because domestic abuse is not limited to adults. Teenagers also can get in a situation where they are being abused either emotionally, physically, sexually. So it's really important for parents to be on the aware for any potential red flags. If your child's significant other is severely isolating them from other people, if your child doesn't seem interested in things that used to interest them, if your child all of a sudden has a huge change in their appetite or sleep patterns, those are all really, really concerning. Certainly, physical signs like bruises or wearing long sleeves to cover up their arms, those are things we want to be on the lookout for too. But again, it's so important that parents know that kids are not immune to dangerous relationships.
Mm. What do you feel like is the age that parents need to start looking for this or kind of being aware of this?
I think if you can, so preteens tend to do a lot of group interactions, right? Like
Mm.
it's like almost like a group dating scene.
Yeah.
Start paying attention then. And don't say anything to the kids,
Hmm.
but just kind of pay attention to those interactions. And then as they become teenagers and kind of start doing the single relationship thing with the dating,
Mm,
that's really when, like 15, 16. That's when you need to
mhm,
to start looking for that stuff.
mhm. And, do you find that it's kind of like, the emotional or, like, the psychological abuse is more prevalent than the physical, or ho do you have, like,
Yeah.
a statistic on that? What is that?
I don't have any
Mhm.
statistics on that. From personal experience, I can say that the emotional abuse happens more frequently than the physical abuse.
Mhm, mhm. And so getting into that conversation, we kinda talked about that already, like, what else can or should a parent do if they're noticing these signs?
So then it's time maybe to get a mental health provider or a pediatrician involved.
Mhm,
You know, if a patient of mine is being physically assaulted, I tend to want to do some labs to make sure there's no internal damage. If a patient is being sexually assaulted, then we need to talk about screening for sexually transmitted infections and those kind of things. So, and if parents are feeling overwhelmed, there are always resources out there to help guide them.
okay. So kind of like doing that initial screening with you and then getting some, additional support for the
Mhm.
parents. Has there ever been a time where you just struggled to get through with a teenager who, like, did they just not listen to you and it got
Mhm.
even worse? Like, where what else can you do?
Yeah. You do the best you can. As a parent, as a clinician, you do the best you can.
Mhm.
You can't necessarily force a teenager to do anything. I have recommended at times to families to get the local police department involved,
Mm,
sometimes social services, depending on the situation. So there is always a way to escalate if they get significant pushback from the teenager.
mm, okay. Okay. I mean, I know I've seen people in this situation and it's hard because the thing is we all know that teenagers can find a way, right? They can always find a way. They can
Mhm.
always find a way to communicate. They can always find a way to have
Mhm.
contacts. They can always find a way, where there's a will, there's a way with these kids.
Mhm.
And so, like kind of what you're saying is if we have to escalate, we will, but
Mhm.
hopefully we catch it more early, like you were saying at the beginning of this
Yeah.
conversation, where we sit down, have a family meeting. Tell me about this person. Like, where did get
Mhm.
that curious
Yeah.
thing so it doesn't keep going, and
Correct.
hoping you can kind of make that impact sooner than later. Okay, this has been great. Any last tips you want to share for the moms today?
Don't take your child's behavior personally. Even teenagers are not necessarily behaving in attempts to upset you. A lot of their behavior is very much biologically driven. And if we can understand that behavior, then we can better address it to help our kids learn how to do better in the future.
Mm, that's great. That's great. Okay, so Dr. Cook, how can people find you? I know you have a book. Can you share the name of that?
Yeah. Absolutely. So, the title of my book is called Parenting Redefined: A Guide to Understanding and Nurturing Your Child's Behavior to Help Them Thrive. And the premise of the book really is what you mentioned in my introduction is this book will help you learn how to parent the child you have, not the one that you want.
Mm,
I have a weekly podcast called Mom Doc Talk with Dr. Kristen Cook. It's a parenting podcast, and people can find me on social media. My handle is usually Mom Doc Talk underscore KCMD, and I'd love to connect and ask me a million questions. I love connecting with parents and, helping them navigate the crazy life of being a mom or a dad.
yes. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. We so
Yeah.
appreciate your time, your great knowledge, and I'm looking forward to having people connect with you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.